Are you ready for this 1-hour English lesson? In this lesson, you're going to learn the most confusing words in English. Now, because this lesson is long, this is divided into separate sections where you'll learn one set of confusing words and then you can take a break if you need and continue on with the next. Welcome back to JForrest English Training. Of course, I'm Jennifer and this is your place to become a fluent, confident English speaker. Let's get started. First, let's talk about the difference between sympathy and empathy. So let's give a scenario. Let's imagine that your friend Ted just lost his job. So this could be a situation, a negative situation, where you want to give some sympathy or some empathy. So if you want to give Ted sympathy, you're going to say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," or "Oh, that's too bad. That really sucks." So you're going to say those words to Ted, but then you're going to go on with the rest of your day. You're going to be happy, you're going to have fun, you're going to do whatever, and you're not really going to think about Ted and his situation anymore. Because sympathy is at the surface level, okay? A situation happens to a friend, a colleague, a coworker, a family member, someone you know, and then you just use your words to offer some words of support, words of comfort, and then you go on with your day. What is empathy, though? Empathy is deeper. Empathy is about emotion. Empathy isn't really about words. Empathy is about trying to understand the emotion that Ted is feeling. So trying to either imagine what Ted must be feeling right now because he just lost his job, the stress he must be feeling, the insecurity, the frustration, the anger, the lack of confidence, whatever emotions that Ted's feeling, you want to understand them. But you want to almost take those emotions on and you feel those emotions. So even though Ted lost his job, you feel the pain of Ted losing his job. And by doing that, you're able to offer more comfort and more support to Ted because you truly want to understand what it feels like. Now, because of that, empathy is really not about words. Empathy is about emotion. So how could you show Ted that you have empathy for his situation? Well, you might sit beside Ted on the couch and just put your arm around him or give him a hug. Or maybe you show your emotion by even having some tears in your eyes as Ted is telling you about how he lost his job and how he's not sure how he's gonna pay his mortgage. You don't say anything, but you show Ted that you understand what he's going through because you might have some visible tears in your eyes, or you put your hand on his shoulder, on his knee, or you just sit there silently and allow the emotion to be present. That's empathy. Empathy is at a much deeper level. And then when you leave, so you say goodbye to Ted, okay, and then you go home, and even though Ted is in his home and you're in your home, you still feel it. You still feel the emotion. You're still a little bit sad yourself. That's empathy. It's way deeper of an emotion. So to summarize, sympathy is about offering words of comfort, but it's step one, offering the words of comfort. And then you offer those words of comfort, and then you just go about your day, go about your life as normal. Empathy is about taking it further, and it's no longer about words, it's about emotions, and it's trying to understand what someone is feeling or the situation that they're going through at a deeper level, so you can offer support to that person. So that's the difference between sympathy and empathy. As these are more concepts, we don't really use them in sentences. So I know I usually ask you to practice in the comments below. However, you might not really be able to practice sentences using these words. So because of that, maybe you can just talk about a scenario where you might want to offer someone sympathy and then a scenario where you want to offer someone empathy. Or you can think back to a time in your life where you did offer someone sympathy and then someone empathy. So maybe you can just talk about those scenarios more to practice using these expressions. Amazing job. Let's move on and look at the difference between relate to and related to. So first, let's talk about how to use to relate to something. When you relate to something, it means you understand a situation or you understand someone's feelings. And the reason why you understand that situation or someone's feelings is because you've had a similar experience. You've experienced it yourself. And because of that, you understand the situation or how someone feels. So let's say your coworker comes up to you and says, "Oh, this project is really stressing me out." Now imagine that in the past, you were on that exact same project and you experienced stress when you were on that project. You've had the same experience. Because of that, you can just say, "I can relate to that. I can relate to that." And what is the that? Well, the that is feeling stressed out on the project. You've experienced the exact same feelings that your coworker is experiencing now. And because you can relate to that, you can probably have a different conversation. You can have a more in-depth conversation, or maybe you can share some tips and advice because you've had that same experience. Here's a great example I saw on Youglish. We can all relate to having doubt or feeling insecure about certain things, right? And you agree with that, right? You can relate to having doubt. You can relate to feeling insecure. If I ask you, can you relate to that? I'm asking you, have you ever experienced that in your life? And if you've never experienced doubt and you've never experienced insecurity, well then you're not human, right? Because we've all experienced it, right? Of course we have. It's a human emotion. We experience all emotions, negative and positive. Now, why might you say something like this? Well, likely because you want to connect to whoever you're talking to. If a student is coming to me and telling me how insecure they feel about using their English in public, I can let them know that I can relate to that. And if the student feels like, "Oh, Jennifer has experienced this as well," then they might be more open to hearing the advice I have to share. Or they might just feel closer to me, more connected to me because we've had that same experience. So that's how we feel connected to each other. It's through shared experiences, right? So it's really powerful to try to relate to somebody's experience or to let them know that you can relate to what they're feeling or what they're experiencing right now. Now, notice in our Youglish example, what do you notice about the verb? We have relate to, and then what do you notice? Relate to having. And notice it's also relate to feeling. Both of our verbs are in the gerund. This is a gerund expression. When you want to use a verb next, I can relate to feeling, having, wanting, missing, needing. Whatever verb you have next is going to be in the gerund. So make sure you pay attention to that when you're forming your sentences. Now let's talk about to be related to someone. When you're related to someone, it means that they are a family member. They're part of your family. You share the same blood, genes, DNA. You come from the same family. Even if it's a great, 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 great aunt or uncle, even if it's a very distant family member, you're still related to them. To be related to someone. So let's say your friend invites you to their family reunion. And at a family reunion, everybody is going to be related, right? Well, not everybody, because of course other people could bring friends or people they're just dating, for example. They're not related to them. That's a very important point. You're not related to your spouse, the person you're married to, because that would mean you share the same DNA and genes and blood, and that's just a little creepy, right? No, you're not related to your spouse. You're married to them, you're part of their family, but you're not relatives. You're not blood relatives, right? You're related to your mother, father, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandmother, grandfather, and cousins, and then the second, the third, the extended family as well, down the family tree. But you're not related to the person you're married to. So you're at this family reunion with your friend, and as you're meeting new people, of course you're gonna ask your friend, oh, how are you related to that person? How are you related to Frank? Oh, he's my second cousin. How are you related to Mary? Oh, she's my aunt. How are you related to Jim? Oh, actually, I'm not related to him. He's married to my aunt. Because you're not related to your aunt's husband, right? Because you're not in the same blood line, the same DNA, the same genes as your aunt's husband. Yes, the husband is part of your family, but you're not directly related to them. Okay, so there is a difference between someone in your family and then being related to someone. So as you can see, there's a big difference between when you relate to something or you relate to someone's feelings and you are related to someone. So there's that difference in sentence structure because it's to be related with the ed, to be related to, but then there's a huge difference in the meaning as well. When you can relate to someone's feelings, you understand their feelings because you've experienced the same thing. And when you're related to someone, you share the same DNA, the same blood, the same genes. They're a member of your blood family. So now you know how to use relate to someone's feelings and to be related to someone. So it's your turn to practice. I want you to leave 2 examples in the comments below. Amazing job. Let's keep going with the difference between either and neither. I'm going to make this explanation real easy for you, and by the end of the video, you'll feel confident using either and neither in sentences. This is definitely an area I see lots of mistakes with, but not just with non-native English speakers. I see this with my friends, with my colleagues, with native English speakers as well. So don't worry too much about this, but I will make it easy for you to remember. Now, before we go any further, I just want you to know that the pronunciation is flexible. So you can say neither, neither, either, either. Okay, there's no difference. I might even change them throughout the video. If I do, there's no difference at all. I tend to use either and neither, and that's generally what I hear being used in North America. With that said, let's talk about the difference between either and neither, and let's start with either. In terms of structure, it's going to be either noun or noun. And we use this structure when we're choosing between 2 options. It's really important that it's only 2 options. We don't use it with 3 and we don't use it with 4. We use it with 2 options. Let's take a look at an example. Either Mike or John will help you. So as you can see, we have our structure either, noun, or noun, right? Now, in terms of meaning, both of these situations are possible. It's possible that Mike will help you. It's possible that John will help you. Now, it's important to note that it's only one person that will help you in the end. So in the end, you will have Mike or John. Either Mike or John will help you. So let's take a moment and practice now that we know how to form a sentence using either or. So pause the video if you need. Think of an example. Remember, the structure is either noun or noun, and then the rest of your sentence. So think about what your sentence is and then put it in the comments below. Now, before we move on, let's talk about different sentence structures using either. Now, it's definitely possible that the nouns, Mike and John in this scenario, the nouns have already been identified, okay? And if that's the case, there are some other sentence structures that you can use. In fact, there are 3 possibilities. They mean exactly the same thing. So let's say that our nouns have already been identified. So I could say, Mike and John are in the office today. So we already set the context that Mike and John are our nouns, right? I don't need to repeat that information. So I could say, Mike and John are in the office today. Either one will help you. Notice here, either one, okay? Of course, either one is Mike and one is John. I don't need to repeat those nouns because I said them at the beginning part of my sentence. In this case, I can simply say, either one will help you. Now, remember I said there's 3 different choices of sentence structure. I could also say, either one of them will help you. So notice here, I'm just adding of them. Of course, the them is Mike and John. You got this, right? Okay, our third choice is I could say either of them will help you. So what am I doing different here? In this case, I'm simply dropping the one, right? So all 3 of these choices mean exactly the same thing. You can use them interchangeably. There's no difference at all. Remember, these 3 choices are used when the nouns have already been identified. So now take a second, take your example that you already use and change it so you identify the nouns first and then follow this structure. Remember, you have 3 different choices, so practice using all 3 and put your practice examples in the comments. Now let's talk about neither. The thing you need to remember is that neither is negative. So I think it's really easy to remember that it's negative because neither starts with an N and negative starts with an N. So you can just have that association in your brain, right? Neither, negative, neither, negative, N, N. So that's an easy way to remember it. So think of it as the exact same as either, but we use it in the negative. So instead of saying that both choices are available and possible, like we did with either, we're using neither to deny those 2 choices, okay? They're not available. Now there's one important change that we need to make, and this change is definitely something that native English speakers forget a lot, okay? But that change is we have to say neither noun. Do you know what I'm going to say next? Do you? Put it in the comments if you do. Neither noun nor noun. Now, again, I think this should be easy for you to remember because you just put an N in front of or, right? Nor, N, negative, neither, negative. So use that brain association. I think it will be really easy for you to remember it that way. Neither, nor, okay? So let's take our original example with either and put it in the negative with neither. So pause the video, think about that, and put it in the comments. What would our original example be with neither? Put it in the comments. Of course, it would be neither Mike nor John will help you. I don't know why they won't help you, but they won't. Because remember, neither is negative. So we're saying those two choices are not available. So you can think of it as you have two choices, right? John and Mike. John won't help you. Mike won't help you. Neither Mike nor John will help you. Now, the same three different sentence structures that we saw with either are exactly the same for neither. So in that case, it's really easy. We just change either to neither. But remember, it's negative, neither, negative. So pause the video, think about what our original examples were with either, and put them in the comments with neither. Did you get them in the comments? Hopefully you did. So remember, we need to put the context and identify our nouns. So I could still say Mike and John are in the office. They can still be in the office, but they're just not willing to help you, okay? So Mike and John are in the office. Neither one will help you, right? Neither one will help you. What are the two other choices? Put them in the comments. Neither one of them will help you. Or our third choice, neither of them will help you. Not very nice, Mike and John, are they? Okay, so by now you feel really comfortable with either and neither, right? But let me give you one more scenario before you go, because it's an important one. And this is an area that I see native English speakers make mistakes with, okay? So let's imagine you're talking to your friend and they just randomly say, I don't speak French. I don't speak French, okay? I don't, negative. I don't speak French. Now, how can we answer this using neither? I don't speak French. What would I say as my answer? Neither do I. Neither do I, because it's negative. I don't speak French. So I'm matching my answer with neither because neither is negative, okay? Neither do I. Now, there's a more casual, informal way that native English speakers answer that, and we simply say, me neither. Me neither. That's a little more of a casual way, but I say it all the time. Neither do I is, the formal way. Me neither. I don't speak French. Me neither. I don't speak French. Neither do I. Now, I don't want to confuse you, but it is possible to answer this with either, but it's not that common, okay? But I just want you to know that it's possible. I don't speak French. How can I answer this with either? Do you know? If you do, put it in the comments. Bonus points if you know this one. Put it in the comments. If I wanted to answer with either to a negative, I would have to make either negative, okay? I would have to say, I don't speak French. I don't either. I don't either. I don't speak French. I don't either. In this case, there's only one possible answer. So that's definitely a possibility. It's just not as common as saying, me neither. Neither do I. But remember, negative statement, you use neither to agree with that negative statement. I don't like coffee. Neither do I. Now, before you go, just one more bonus thing, okay? Now, imagine it was a positive statement, okay? And my friend said, I speak French. My answer would be, me too. Me too. So do I. So do I. So if it's a positive statement and you're agreeing positively, we don't use either and we don't use neither. Okay, so those don't exist in this situation. They're not choices. You're doing awesome. Feel free to hit pause and take a break. And when you're ready, let's move on to the difference between anyway, anyways, anyhow, and anywho. And at the end of this lesson, there will be a quiz and you can download the free PDF summary. Let's go. First, let's talk about anyway and anyways. What's the difference between these two? Well, it's very simple. One of these words is grammatically correct and the other is slang. Do you know which one is slang? Well, anyways with an S is slang. It doesn't exist in English as a word. This may surprise you because native speakers use anyways all the time. In fact, I would say that anyways with an S is just as common as anyway, even though technically anyways with an S is not a word in English, it's slang. Regardless, you will hear anyways in formal situations like TED Talks or formal presentations, even from politicians and doctors. You will hear anyways being used all the time. But remember, anyway without the S, anyway is the grammatically correct choice in any situation. Now let's talk about how to use anyway and anyhow. They have the exact same meaning. They're interchangeable, which means you can use anyway or you can use anyhow. It doesn't matter. They're both adverbs and they have three common meanings. So let's review each meaning and we'll look at example sentences. The first meaning, we use anyway and anyhow to mean in any case, without regard to other considerations. For example, let's say you're planning a family dinner at a new restaurant you want to try, but you're not sure if this restaurant takes reservations. You might say to your family member, I'm not sure if the restaurant takes reservations. Anyway, I'll call tonight. So this means without regard to other considerations in any case. So it doesn't matter if the restaurant takes reservations or doesn't take reservations, you're going to call. Remember, you can use anyhow and they have the exact same meaning. So I could say, I'm not sure if the restaurant takes reservations. I'll call tonight anyhow. Notice I changed the placement of the adverb. The placement can come at the beginning of the sentence or at the end of the sentence. There's no difference between these two. Anyway and anyhow are also used when you provide a more important reason or consideration. Let's say you find out about a work conference but you decide you're not going to go. You could say, the conference is out of town. That's one reason you're not going to go. It's out of town, which means it's not in your city or your location. It's in a different city or a different location. So that's one reason. But you want to provide a more important reason why you're not going to the conference. You could say, the conference is out of town and I have another meeting that day anyway. So the fact that you have another meeting is more important than the fact that the conference is out of town. And we use the adverb anyway to show that. With this meaning, the placement of the adverb is also flexible and it can come at the beginning of the sentence or the end of the sentence. So I could also say, the conference is out of town and anyhow, I have another meeting that day. Notice it came at the beginning of the sentence, but I put the adverb and to act as a transition word, and anyhow. So you will commonly see anyhow or anyway with a small adverb like and, but, so in front of it. That doesn't change the meaning in any way. And you can just get rid of it and the sentence would be the same. The conference is out of town. Anyhow, I have another meeting that day. The final way we use anyway and anyhow is as a transition word to transition from one conversation topic to another conversation topic. And this might be the most common way it's used, and this might be the way you're most comfortable using it. And you can use anyway or anyhow, it doesn't matter. And of course, you can use anyways, but remember, that's slang. So let's say you're having a conversation with your friend and you're talking about one subject, work. You're talking about work. It's really busy at work right now and we need to hire another accountant. But now you don't want to talk about work anymore with your friend. You want to change the topic. You can say, anyway, how was Italy? So your friend just got back from this vacation and you want to now change the topic from work to your friend's vacation. Work's really busy now. We need to hire another accountant. Anyhow, how is Italy? Tell me about Italy. Again, you can use anyway or anyhow, but with this meaning to change conversation topics, we most commonly put the adverb at the beginning of the second sentence. So we don't commonly put it at the end of the sentence. And you can still use another transition word like and, so, but. You're talking about work. We need to hire another accountant. So anyway, and anyway, but anyway, how was Italy? Now finally, let's talk about the difference between anyhow and anywho. Anywho is a slang replacement to anyhow. You can use it the exact same way you use anyhow. Remember though, it's slang. Now notice the spelling, because most commonly when we use this in a text message, for example, it's spelled Anywho, H-O-O. That's because we're borrowing from the word how and we're just changing it slightly to who. So you may see it written as anywho, but it's more commonly written as anywho. In pronunciation, there's no difference at all. Anywho is a fun, light-hearted, casual way to say anyhow. But keep in mind that it isn't commonly used. Remember I said that anyways, even though it's slang, it's used 50% of the time. That's not the same with anywho. Anywho isn't very common, and in fact, some native speakers, depending on the region they're from, they might not even know what it is, and they may think you just made a mistake and you meant to say anyhow. So because it isn't very commonly used, and because it's slang, I don't recommend using it. Now you know how to use anyway, anyways, anyhow, and anywho. Are you ready for your quiz? Here are your questions. Hit pause, take as much time as you need, and when you're ready, hit play for the answers. Let's see how well you did on that quiz. Here are your answers. So hit pause Review these answers, compare them to your own, and when you're done, hit play. So, how did you do with that quiz? Share your score in the comments below, and remember, you can download the PDF that summarizes everything from this lesson so you can practice it and review it. So the link to download the PDF is right there. You can go there and download it anytime. Way to go. Let's move on and talk about as soon as and as long as. Let's start with as soon as. You can think of this as a time reference, okay? We're talking about time. And as soon as, you can translate that to immediately after, okay? Immediately after something happens. For example, call your mother as soon as you get home. Okay, so remember, we can think of as soon as immediately after. So immediately after you get home, call your mother. So imagine you're walking home, you open your door, you enter your house, okay? Immediately after. So the first thing you're going to do when you get home is call your mother. Call your mother as soon as you get home. Now, it's important to keep in mind that the structure of this is flexible. I can use as soon as to start the sentence, and I can say as soon as you get home. As soon as you get home, call your mother. And they mean exactly the same thing. Another example, send me that report as soon as you get the numbers. So immediately after you get the numbers, what are you going to do? You're going to send me the report. Send me the report as soon as you get the numbers. And remember, we can switch the sentence structure as well. So write in the comments below, what would be the alternative way to write this starting with as soon as? So pause the video and write that in the comments below to practice. Did you get it? As soon as you get the numbers. As soon as you get the numbers, send me the report. Now let's talk about as long as. As long as and as soon as are very different. The only thing they share is that they both have as and as, okay? But they're used very differently. Now, with as long as, we're offering a condition, okay? This will make sense with an example sentence. So let me give you an example. I'll go to the party as long as you give me a ride, okay? So there's a condition, right? I will only go to the party if you give me a ride. If you don't give me a ride, I won't go to the party. That's the condition. So we use as long as for identifying a condition. I'll go to the party as long as you give me a ride. Now, just like with as soon as, this sentence structure is flexible as well. So think about this, hit pause, and change the sentence structure so we begin with as long as, okay? Put your answer in the comments below. Did you get it? As long as you give me a ride, I'll go to the party. Another example, I'll help you with that report as long as you buy me lunch. So my offer to help you is conditional, and I'll only help you if, what? If you buy me lunch, right? That's the as long as you buy me lunch. I'll help you with that report as long as you buy me lunch. Now again, think about changing that sentence structure, hit pause, and write the alternative sentence structure in the comments below. Did you get it? As long as you buy me lunch, I'll help you with that report. To summarize, we have two great conjunctions. As soon as, which you can think of immediately after something, and we have as long as, which is used to offer a condition. All right, now you know how to use as soon as and as long as confidently. Now you practice. Make sure you write one example with as soon as and one example with as long as in the comments below. And then change that to the other sentence structure so you get comfortable with both of them. You're doing amazing. Let's keep going and talk about as well and as well as. First, let's talk about as well. As well is used when we add an additional piece of information. You can think of it as the same as to. So let's say your friend says, I have to go to the bank. Now, you have to go to the bank. So you have to go to the bank, your friend has to go to the bank. So we can use as well. So again, your friend says, I have to go to the bank. You can say, I have to go as well, as well. So here is like saying to. You both have to do the same action. Or let's say it's early in the morning and you go to your favorite cafe for a cup of coffee. So you order and you say, I'll have a coffee. But then you notice those muffins look delicious. So then you add, and a muffin as well, as well. So you can add as well. I'll have a coffee and a muffin as well. So we're adding as well, our adverb, to the end of a sentence. Notice that. Sentence structure, the placement is at the end of a sentence, and it's used when we're adding an additional point, a point that complements our first point. Now, as well as is used in a different way. The meaning is more advanced. It's more of an advanced grammar topic. The meaning is not only Y, but also X. Okay? Not only, but also. For example, I have to go to the bank as well as the store. As well as the store. So notice, not only Y, but also X. Now notice how I'm saying not only Y, but also X. It's because we emphasize X. So in this case, our X is bank and the Y is store. Now I'm emphasizing bank. I have to go to the bank as well as the store. Now let's compare that to a simple sentence with as well. I could say, I have to go to the store and I have to go to the bank as well. So in this case, I'm adding an additional place I need to go. Remember our placement, as well comes at the end of the sentence. Now, the important thing to remember is in this case, I'm not emphasizing one action over the other. They're equal importance. The bank, the store, they're equal. But when I use as well as, the bank is more important. It has more emphasis than the store. I have to go to the bank as well as the store. Now notice the placement with as well as. We use as well as before the second noun. The store is our second noun, as well as the store. But with as well, it's simply at the end, the very end of the sentence. One more example showing both side by side. Let's say I was at the mall yesterday and I could tell my friend, I bought a sweater and a t-shirt as well. Remember, as well, I'm just adding an additional item. I bought a sweater and a t-shirt as well. Now let's say I want to identify two qualities that the sweater has, but I want to emphasize one over the other. I could say the sweater is beautiful as well as comfortable. So, two items, beautiful and comfortable, but I'm emphasizing beautiful. The sweater is beautiful as well as comfortable. So now you can see them side by side and understand how they're used differently. And of course, it's your turn to practice. So I want you to do the same thing. Give an example where first you can use as well, and then make a statement where you're identifying two characteristics or two items, two nouns, and you're emphasizing one and use as well as. So put your example in the comments below. Amazing job. Hit pause, take a break if you need, and when you're ready, let's talk about as much as. As much as can be used in two very different ways depending on the context. And you're going to learn how to use both of these ways by the end of the video. So here we go with meaning number one. You can use as much as when you have two different things and you want to say that those two things are equal in amount or degree. Let's take a look at an example sentence. I deserve that promotion as much as she does. As you can see in this example, we have two different things. And we're talking about amount. The amount that I deserve the promotion, and what's the other amount? The amount that she deserves the promotion, okay? So let's say the amount that she deserves the promotion is this much. Now, if I want to use as much as, remember, it's equal. So she deserves the promotion this much, I deserve the promotion this much, it's equal. I deserve the promotion as much as she does. Let me give you another example and then I'll get you to try your own example sentence. Okay, I could say that Jose participated in the conference as much as Maria did. Okay, so here we have amount of participation, or the degree to which Maria participated and Jose participated. But you might just want to think of them in terms of amount. So Jose participated in the conference this much. I can't really make it different in sizes. This much. And Maria participated in the conference this much. They're equal. Let me give you one more example, and I'll make it an easy example that everyone can understand. You ate as much cake as I did. Okay, so we have the amount of cake that you ate, the amount of cake that I ate, and they are equal, right? Now, look at the sentence structure. What do you notice that's a little bit different here? You ate as much cake as I did. So notice here I've added in the something. So ate is a verb, right? But if I want to specify ate what? If I want to add the something, look at the placement here. As much, something, as, okay? So that's when you're including a noun. And the purpose of that just would be to specify ate what. I could leave out cake. I can leave that something out and I could simply say, I ate as much as you did. Now, the only difference here is that I'm specifying cake, right? But if cake is on the table, it's obvious based on context that we're talking about cake. I don't necessarily need to include that in the sentence, but I wanted you to be aware of that sentence structure when we include a something. So now you know how to use the first meaning of as much as. And remember, we have two things, and they are equal in amount or degree. So now it's your turn to practice. I want you to think of an example using as much as and put your example in the comments. I think you can have a lot of fun thinking of an example for this one. So put your example in the comments. Did you get it in the comments? Okay, great. Now let's move on to meaning number two. As much as in our second meaning, you can think of it more in terms of although, regardless of, or despite how much. That probably doesn't give you much information, does it? So as always, it's easier to just see this in an example. I could say, as much as I want to stay, I have to go. Notice here, as much as is at the very beginning of our sentence, okay? As much as I want to stay, I have to go. Now, you can think of this as although. Although I want to stay, I have to go. Now, what does this mean? Basically, we can think of them as two individual sentences. I want to stay, I have to go. Okay, those are two individual sentences. And then we're just combining them together using as much as at the very beginning. There's an easy way that this will make sense for you, and that's by using but. You're most likely familiar with but. It's one of the first transition words that students learn. So you can think of this as I want to stay, but I have to go. That could be one way that you combine these two sentences into one using the transition word but, okay? And notice there's a contrast here. I want to stay. That's a positive, right? I have to go. That's a negative. So when we use but, there's always a positive and a negative. Now, we're using as much as in exactly the same way. Is simply the sentence structure that's changing here. So remember, we're using as much as at the very beginning of the sentence. As much as I want to stay, comma, I have to go. Another example, as much as I'd love to help you, I can't. Now, this is a very common way that we may decline to do something politely. I'm letting you know, I want to help you, I can't help you. So we have that contrast, right? A positive, I want to help you, but then we have a negative, I can't help you. So we could combine those sentences with but, I want to help you, but I can't. That might be the more familiar structure to you. So this is just an alternative way to form that, and I'll be honest, it does sound more advanced using this structure. Now remember, as much as at the very beginning. As much as I want to help you, I can't. So when you hear as much as, you know that there's going to be a contrast. So when someone says, as much as I want to help you, even if they don't say the end part, I know they're not going to help me, because that's how we use as much as, is with a contrast. So just keep that in mind. It can be a polite way to decline doing something. For example, you could use it as a polite way to decline an invitation to a party. Your friend invites you to a party, and you can say, as much as I'd love to go, I can't. So as much as I'd love to, that's the positive, right? I want to go to the party. But then the negative is, I can't. I'm busy. I have to work. I have a deadline. I don't have a way to get there. Whatever the reason is, as much as I'd love to go, I can't. So that could be a polite way to decline an invitation. So now you try using this advanced structure where you need a contrast, okay? And remember that placement, as much as, is going to be at the very beginning. So pause the video now if you need, think of your example, and then leave it in the comments. This is definitely an advanced structure that's going to make you sound very fluent and very advanced in English. So you need to practice this. And I'm really excited to read your example in the comments. So make sure you take the time to put your example in the comments so you remember how to use this structure. Let's keep going. This is your last section. Let's talk about as, adjective as. This is a very common structure, and we use this structure when you're comparing two things. So when I say two things, we need two nouns, and they can be any nouns. And we're comparing them using an adjective or an adverb. Now, we use as, adjective as, when the two things that you're comparing are equal. Let's take a look at an example. Now, first of all, we need two things. So let's just take a look at two houses. I could say that this house is as big as this house. So in this example sentence, what's my adjective? Write the adjective down in the comments, okay? What's the adjective? Big, of course. Big is our adjective. Now remember, we use this structure when the two items are comparable. But what if they aren't comparable? What about these two houses? Now in this case, I can simply make my verb negative. So let's take a look at our original sentence. So remember, this was our original sentence when the houses were comparable. Now they're not. So what would I need to change in this sentence to make it negative? Put your answer in the comments. I hope you know this one. I'm sure you do. So I would simply need to take my verb and make that negative. And in this case, I'm using the verb to be. So I would say, this house isn't as big as that house. So in positive form, you're using the structure when two things are equal, but you can still use this when two things are not equal, but you need to make the verb negative. Let's take a look at another example. So I need two things. I'm going to use two cars. I can say, this BMW is as fast as this Lexus. So here, what's my adjective? Put it in the comments. What's the adjective? Fast. Now, of course, we can use any adjective we want. So let's think of some other examples of adjectives. What other adjective could you use instead of fast? What do you think? Anything come to mind? Put an example in the comments. Think of another adjective you could use. Well, I could talk about money and say that this BMW is as expensive. Expensive is the adjective that deals with money. This BMW is as expensive as this Lexus. Perhaps I could say this BMW is as nice as this Lexus. So what adjective did you use in the comments? Now, of course, if these two cars are not comparable in terms of speed, then I can simply make our verb negative and I can say, this BMW isn't as fast as this Lexus. And again, I can use any adjective. All right, so now it's your turn to practice. I'm going to give you two images and I want you to form a positive sentence using as adjective as. So here are your two gardens. Now what sentence could you use? This garden, this garden. So take your time, as much time as you need, think about an adjective and put it in the comments below. Make sure you do this. You need to practice this. Did you get it in the comments? So of course, the first adjective that came to my mind was beautiful. We could also have pretty, colorful, lush, well-maintained, and maybe some other adjectives. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you had in the comments. Now, as a final exercise, I want you to take your example and make it negative, okay? That should be pretty easy for you by now. So using beautiful, I would simply say, this garden isn't as beautiful as that garden. Now, I wanted to make this video because in a previous lesson, I covered as much as. And in the comments, I noticed that there were some questions or that there was some confusion and students were using as much as when they should have been using as adjective as. For example, let's take this comment from my awesome student, Buddha. Now, Buddha wrote this example, but had a couple question marks at the end. So Buddha wasn't sure. And it's good that you guessed or that you weren't sure because there is something a little bit off about this comment. So Buddha said, "You are beautiful as much as me." Now here, we definitely need the as adjective as. We use as much as when we're comparing two amounts. But in that case, with as much as, there isn't an adjective involved. You're simply dealing with the verb, okay? So you can review that video on as much as. But here in Buddha's comment, how can we take this comment and change it so it's grammatically correct using as adjective as? So, take as much time as you need and then put your answer in the comments. So, were you able to correct Buddha's comment here? The correct comment would be, "You're as beautiful as me." You're as beautiful as me. Because we need to use our as adjective as structure in this case. Now, of course, we could make this negative, but I'm not going to because that wouldn't be a very nice thing to say. So I don't want to make it negative. You did it! Amazing job with this lesson. Now feel free to share some examples in the comments below with your brand new vocabulary. And if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe. And before you go, make sure you head on over to my website, JForrestEnglish.com, and download your free speaking guide. In this guide, I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. And until next time, happy studying!